Four people with four unique stories on one mission to disassemble corporate brokerage one bad suit and tie at a time. We are the Rebels of Real Estate.
Woo! Ah!
Wow. Yes.
Welcome. Welcome,
you.
all 10 podcast listeners.
I think it's 11 now. My mom said she subscribed.
We should probably stop saying that because we do have a decent amount of listeners, and we keep saying that. Terrible.
We appreciate
one of our
all
biggest
you.
listeners is my son. Donovan listens to. He talks about it when it's kind of funny to me, but he's been vibing on it.
I get a text from my mom every week. I just listen to it. Like as soon as it goes out, I'm like, okay, cool. She's like, you guys are interesting people.
I think all our moms are listening.
My mom doesn't listen.
No.
I was just kidding. My mom doesn't either, but I thought it would be funny to say. You know.
This is podcast number 13, leadership.
Lucky number 13.
Yeah.
This is a good topic
you owe me a
to talk
Coke.
about. Huh?
Leadership is a good topic to talk about.
It's a great topic to talk about. And considering
solid.
we did business last week, it just felt natural to go into the leadership side of things. And also because I don't think just because you're a business owner, you're automatically a leader. Would you agree?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Agree to disagree. No, I'm just kidding.
Same as managers aren't leaders. Not all managers are leaders.
Yeah.
Some people just manage.
That's actually, we were going to go into that, but let's talk about that because I agree 100% because just because you manage people doesn't mean you have the skills, right? Or I shouldn't even say skills. Kind of, do you think leadership is learned or do you think it's you're born with some of those traits or?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
Man, we're all kind of jinx right now. I agree.
It means we're on the same page. So for you guys, what traits come to mind when you hear the word leader?
Go ahead, Corey. You've been
Start
itching to
with
fire
one.
off here.
Start off big.
No, I think for me is doing the things that nobody else wants to do and getting in the trenches with your people and actually doing the work with them and not delegating and saying you should do this, you do this, you do this, but being there, supporting them, doing what they're supposed to, helping them to grow. Your people.
Being a teacher, right?
Yeah.
I think being exactly like Corey said, like being there, being a part of it, being all hands on deck, helping your team. But you have to have enthusiasm, you have to have vision, and you have to be excited about what you're doing that makes other people want to be a part of it. So being, a little bit visionary, optimistic, having a good attitude, I think those are also key ingredients to being, a successful leader. And I think you can be born with those natural tendencies, but I think a lot of it too is learned and it's daily practice as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that I would have to probably lean towards 80% of leadership is natural. If you look at like you talk about alphas, right? Like alpha people and they're leaders. You can't take somebody who's not an alpha and make them a leader. They can try to learn leadership qualities, but people have to be naturally attracted to you as a leader. You have to have a presence. Leadership is the greatest leaders that you have. They have a presence. They walk in the room. They talk to you. There's that charisma. There's that presence. They make you feel comfortable. They make you feel like no matter what happens today, you're going to be good, right? Like, so one of the key differences for me in leadership and management is when something goes wrong. Right. And leaders, they see the problem. They don't get flustered. They look for ways to get through it and they help everyone collectively. And most importantly, I think Corey touched on this, is they're involved in the solution, right? They're there. It's not just managing the problem. It's actually finding a solution for the problem and being part of that solution with your team. And one of the biggest things I feel like in leadership versus management is looking at the people that you have underneath you and their success. Leaders make people more successful. A lot of times they make them more successful than they are. And a good leader can be replaced at any moment by the people that they've led. Mm-hmm. And that to me is a huge difference in leadership and management.
On top of that, a good leader won't care if their people are making more money than them or more successful than they are. I think that's another big key. So.
They're invested in their success.
Yeah, I always said, like, I'm working myself out of a job. That's what my goal was always. But going back to what you were just saying, Rob, like, as if you have employees and you have the employee, the fire starts, right? You have the employee that runs around and is like, oh my gosh, fire, fire, fire. But then you have the one that will just come to you and go, hey, I screwed up, or this is the mistake that happened, or the fire that's going on, but this is how I'm going to fix it. I won't let it happen again. Which one would you keep as an employee or want to grow as an employee, but which one naturally goes to that leadership role?
Yeah, I think, and there too, like I'm going to flip that a different way.
Yeah.
Both of those people are okay.
Yeah. It's
going to depend on who is in that position that they go to.
Right.
Right. Because you have a manager or a person who's not a good leader, and they're going to freak out. They're going to be angry. They're going to react. They're going to be reactive. Right. Either case, right? If somebody comes up and said, hey, I make a mistake, and they're calm about it, some people will just react and be like, oh, you're an idiot. You screwed up. This is wrong. If somebody comes over and they're freaking out about something being wrong, then you react twice as much, or twice as much to whatever that problem is. But a good leader is going to take both of those people, calm them down, or, in one sense, calm them down. On the other sense, relate to that and say, hey, listen, I appreciate you coming to me. Let's figure this out and solve it. Right. So that, I think part of that, like, is how that person in leadership responds to both of them.
Right.
Because not everybody's built like that. Some people do freak out, but it's up to the leader to be able to calm them down and help them find a solution.
What about humility? Because obviously we have humility as one of our core values, but to me, it goes back to what Corey was saying, that, you're able to be in the trenches, right? So there's a little humility there, right? Or a little humility in stepping back, right?
You truly want to be in the trenches.
Right.
It's not because it's your job. It's because you want to. You really want to do it.
Yeah. And make sure you're sharing in the successes versus taking the spotlight. We were just talking about humility. And that's what I think of sometimes. You see people who have the potential to be great leaders, but they're so busy taking the spotlight versus sharing the spotlight with the people that are next to them that it takes away, right? Like,
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting again.
You're good.
You're
but,
supposed
do
to
it.
do
but
that.
that's what I'm
That's what
supposed
you're
to do. So I just immediately think back to a sales manager of mine in the car business, and I think we may have touched on this before, but we had, I think I did talk about this actually probably in our podcast, but it was the car wars, we called it, and it was a bunch of dealerships working, and I think I sold 7 or 8 cars that day, which was more than, I was feeling myself, and I respected this sales manager. He was the GM, and he said to me, Corey, silent greatness. He's like, you're the best salesman that we have. He's like, but you don't need to tell anybody that you are.
Right.
So from that point, I'm not saying that I wasn't still proud because I was young, but that has always stuck with me.
Right.
Thanks, Randy Schwartz.
I know, Randy.
I think one of the things too that we can discuss is the we versus I mentality, right? Because I feel like that's a significant difference in someone who has good leadership qualities. Is it's never I. It's never I when there's a problem, and there's never I when there's a win. It's always we, right? How do we fix this? How do we correct this? We won. We killed it. I think that I and we is a key, and not saying it to say it, but meaning it when you're saying it. Like, I feel like it's us. I don't feel like it's me. So.
And that, I'll take that back to like a cultural thing too, right? Like, I worked for Vanguard for years, and Vanguard was very, very big on the we culture. So it was ingrained, and everyone always did feel like we're in this collectively. So it was good to be in an environment like that where there's a balance issue though, as you go to a job interview and you're so used to saying, well, we did this. And then we would go into job interviews and they would, like, within the company, and they're like, well, what did you do? And you were like, you could not talk about yourself, and because you weren't comfortable, one, because you did feel like it was a collective effort, but you had to try to sell yourself at the same time. So there's a balance there, right? Where you have to, there's humility, and there's also accepting the fact that, some of the things you have done are yours. But going back to what Corey said too, and I think you said it too, like, there's nothing worse than a leader who will walk up and be like, I did this, knowing that every single person sitting next to him is the one who actually did it, or take the credit for something.
It's about teamwork.
Yeah.
Like, no big companies out there that are successful in what they do are not made up of a core groups of teams that work cohesively and well together. Nobody does anything on their own.
Yeah.
And I think the better you can work and build teams within your organization, the more success you'll see in that company overall.
For sure. And when you go to humility too, and you touch on this, Rob, a little bit about when there's a problem, it's a collective problem. But there is a benefit to also being that person who admits guilt as a leader, right? Like you're in charge and you admit guilt, or you're in charge and you protect the people underneath you if you need to, right?
I think one of the things too that for me that speaks of a good leader is they understand the trickle down effect. By what I mean by that is the way you treat the person right under you is the same way they're going to treat the person under them, is the way they're going to treat the person under them. And then ultimately it's going to affect whoever your customer or client is.
Yeah.
And I think that people get away from that managers are so used to leading with an iron fist that they don't realize that you're setting the tone for everyone else down the line. And that was something I learned early on in management from one of my owners. And his phrase used to be, you get more bees with honey or something like that. It was somewhere along those lines
More
where,
flies.
or is that what it is? More flies with honey
Than you do
with vinegar or something like, I don't know. It was something weird. No, it really was. It was like it was probably one of those
salt.
Pennsylvania
It's
Dutch
salt or vinegar. Yes,
Central
salt or
PA
vinegar.
things or something, right? But he used to say that, and it made a lot of sense, right? Because I would always, I was that early on in my career. I remember my early 20s, I'm running bars and restaurants, and I was that dick, right? I'm that guy that's like, you did this, you got to do this, because that's the way owners used to treat me. And then I had a really good owner, and that owner would just tell me, he'd be like, you're doing a great job. He was like, but you have to learn that everyone has to be managed differently, and good leaders recognize people's triggers and how you manage them. There are some people that you have to yell at or they're never going to listen. There's other people that you have to massage, right? Because if you yell at them, they shut down and they're not listening to a word you're saying. So leaders recognize that.
That's a conversation I used to have with my volleyball players when I coached, because coaching is very similar, right? Some people respond in a coaching environment or being coached, right, with somebody screaming at them. And then a lot of people don't. It's more of you need to sit and explain because I don't understand, right? And so similar, right? What about emotional intelligence as a leader?
You have to have it.
100%.
You have to. And the people without emotional intelligence, they're the ones that fly off the handle.
Right.
Because they don't understand how to read people, right? Like, stop. But no, I think that's probably one of the most important things is emotional intelligence.
I would find emotional intelligence more important than your actual IQ in general.
100%.
Yeah, because you have to be able to, like you said, take that step back and say, what am I doing? Not what necessarily is the other things happening around me, but what is it that I'm doing, right?
Yeah, that's the key in sales too, really. Emotional intelligence. I mean, if you don't have emotional intelligence, you can't be a great salesperson. I mean, you can be a schwarmy, like grimy salesperson, right? That just beat people up into their decisions. But I think the greatest salespeople have high emotional intelligence, and they just understand how to relate to people and make people feel comfortable and pick up on things that those people are giving you. Corey's really great at that. That's one of the things he can pick up. And I do pretty well with that too. You and I are always together. I felt like we were pretty good at picking up with that on people. But that's probably one of the biggest traits, actually. That's a good call. I didn't even think about that.
Well, and tying into it, recognizing strengths and weaknesses in yourself, right? And being accountable for those is part of emotional intelligence. But then also looking at your employees and recognizing those things too. Why would we? It's kind of like us saying Katie's awesome at marketing, but we're going to make her do, sales or graphic design, or not graphic design, but HR, here, Katie, figure it out. So, and not, I guess to follow up to that, not taking that and going, well, you're not good at that. So you suck. Right? So, what?
Corey and I are ADDing out over here, making faces at each other.
Just a little bit. That's par for the course.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
It's late.
Sorry,
it's late in the day.
It
That's
is
what
late in the
happens
day for
in
us
the
doing
We
afternoon.
normally
this.
do these in the morning. This is a little later in the afternoon today.
Like you remember in high school, you know, in the afternoon, you'd just be throwing stuff around.
Oh yeah, after
Paper
lunch. After lunch, it was a wrap.
Balls, yeah, whatever.
It was 7th
Large
grade, 8th grade.
balls.
After lunch, it was on. You know.
7th or 8th grade, probably right now.
Well,
36, I still do it.
Truth.
If I had the opportunity.
It was just like waiting for the bell to ring so you could get out the door, right?
Always, yeah.
Okay.
Greatest thing of my day.
Watching the clock.
What about open-mindedness? How does that
I
tie
think
into being a leader?
Yeah, I think you have to be open-minded all the time, because there's things that, you know, I may not see, or I may see, and, you know, my partners or other people on the team don't see, you know, that affect our business, you know, and things are constantly changing. And if you can't have an open mind and be willing to adapt, pivot, and change at all times, you're going to have a problem. I feel like, you know, especially being in a leadership position.
Yeah, flexibility is a good trait, right? Is the ability to be flexible and to adapt, like Adam just said. Yeah, that's super important. Because if not, then you're rigid and you're not open to new ideas and you're not open to growth. I think you have to be open-minded for growth to happen, right? And if you're closed-minded, you're not going to have any growth.
That brings me, and everybody that's listening, if you're an Iron Valley person or an owner with us, you've heard this story. I'm not going to give the whole story, but it makes me think of an owner very early on in our career that came into our office and said, "You guys are not going to be successful." He said a few choice words, actually, but I'm going to say, he said, "You're not going to be successful. I can't wait to watch you guys fail." And that guy was not looking at things through being open-minded. And for me, I mean, of course, when I'm older, I'm going to probably not going to be happy about a new guys coming in and doing whatever, but I don't think I'll be.
I don't think so.
I don't think I'd be angry at him. It's the changing. You know what I'm saying? I don't
It
think
is
I'd
what
be
it is. This is a free marketplace, you know, that we live in, and it's good for the consumer. Competition is, you know, good for people overall.
What I'm getting at, instead of looking to pivot, he just dug his heels in and became bitter and angry. You know. So.
And change is always hard. It's uncomfortable. Anytime, you know, it's work. You know.
Right.
And people don't like to do that. You know, it's just
right.
Natural tendency, you know, of human nature not to.
Which goes into change advocacy. Like, can you be a successful leader if you are not going to be a change agent? If you're going to be dug in all the time?
No.
Right?
No.
You can't.
Because part of that's part of humility, though, as well, right?
Yeah.
Is the ability to step back and say, hey, this person who, quote unquote, is under me in the hierarchy at this company might know something better than I do. And you have to be open to listen to that and to be willing to, you know, see that through to see if it is a better course of action. So, you know, that's kind of hand in hand, humility with the flexibility and the open-mindedness. It kind of all goes hand in hand. But
And when I go into open-mindedness too, the open-mindedness, that sounded
open-mindedness.
To me, it's deeper than just being open to like business and concepts. It goes to me into the diversity things, into recognizing that the people, and I think we talk about this, we all grew up in certain circumstances, and a lot of places would look at us and be like, I'm not open-minded to you working for me because you look a certain way or you've been through a certain experience or those things. So I think it plays into a good leader is going to say, I don't care where you came from, how long it took you to get here. If you can bring to the table what I need, then we're here together, right?
Agreed.
I think we started talking about this. I don't know if we brought it up, but like being fearless. What's your thoughts? Being fearless. Think of the great leaders that you think of.
Yeah. Innovation comes through fearlessness,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think to be a good leader, you don't have to necessarily be fearless, right? Like, I think it's a good trait to have and it makes great leaders, but there's people that are good leaders that aren't necessarily fearless, right?
You have to be, you don't, fear is still good.
Maybe
good
it's
thing,
good under
right?
Maybe it's good under pressure.
Like fear is still good that you're not irresponsible. Either, but
I mean, think of the Vietnam vets that they said were fearless. In actuality, they were scared out of their minds, and they did what they had to do to survive.
Right.
Period. So, I think fear is a catalyst too. To
me, that's still fearless, though, right? Like I think we all live with that fear. Like, I don't know. There's plenty of times where I do things that I'm completely uncomfortable and I'm not sure about the outcome's going to be. So there's fear there, but I'm still going to do it.
But you push yourself
right
to go for it.
That's how it is when I'm like going for that third ice cream. You know what I mean? I just do it. You know, I know I'm going to probably throw up or, you know, have to use the toilet, but, you know, I'm just going to do it anyway. Sorry, guys.
Wow.
Shout out to Jay Lesko.
Here we go again. What's next?
Well,
I think Adam had a train of thought. And
I did have a
Corey
train of
inter-
thought. I didn't,
Corey
no, I didn't have a
interrupted
train of
him.
thought.
Sorry, Adam.
I think
Sorry,
too, like a little, I wanted to say this kind of earlier on when we talked about too, what makes, you know, people successful in leadership is, you know, I also think it's important for leadership and the team and the company overall to win, to be successful at what they do and continually do that. That breeds success and it breeds enthusiasm from the people that are part of the company. And you have to continually show wins and achieve and be successful for people to want to work for you, to be a part of it.
And
to share in
celebrate
that.
the wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Agreed.
sure. What about, one of us talked about this, one of you guys, I don't know, but like, do you have to be the most vocal person in the room to be a leader?
No.
No, but you have to be vocal. You can't be a quiet leader. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room, but how are you going to lead if you don't have a voice? People aren't going to believe in someone they can't talk to. You have to, it has to be a balance, right? You don't have to be screaming. You don't have to be the center of attention, but you have to have a voice. If that makes sense.
Well, it goes to, there's always been this theory, right? Or this belief that you have to be an extrovert to be a leader. You can't be an introvert. So it ties to the same thing. Like, you don't have to be that person who thrives off of all of those people around you building your energy. Some of the best leaders are the ones who can be reflective and step back, right? And think inwards, but they use those people around them, or they surround themselves with those extroverts to help cover what they can't, right?
Oh man, I don't know.
You
I'm on the
know?
fence about this.
Yeah.
I am.
Okay.
I'm on the fence about
Let's
it.
talk
And,
about
and the
it.
reason I'm saying that is because I don't think someone who, when I think of a leader, I think of someone who inspires me, right? Like someone who makes me feel better or who invigorates me, right? Someone who's just going to sit back and be an introvert and not do that. That's not leading. For me, it's not leadership, right? You could make the argument that if they're successful and they do the things they're supposed to do, they're kind of a leader, right? But when I think leader, I think alpha. I think someone in the forefront, someone who's driving, right? All of that. So there has to be some of that there. It doesn't have to be extreme.
I see the opposite too. So I don't think it has to be you're out there 100%. I think it's leading by example.
Yeah.
You can be a leader and lead by example, and people see what you're doing and they want to follow you because you're doing it, and you're not talking about how you're doing it. You're doing it.
Agreed.
Some-
That's a different kind of
sometimes-
leadership, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Well,
get what
and
you're saying.
sometimes too much of that, sometimes those types of leaders turn people off
Correct.
and push them the other way.
I think there's a balance.
There's a balance. You are right on the fact that you have to have a voice, but you don't necessarily have to be, look at Elon Musk, look at Bill Gates, some of these other leaders.
Elon's a bad one to put out there. There's nobody louder in the room than Elon Musk.
Yeah, but he's more of an introvert. Like,
Elon is the loudest guy in the room.
really?
I mean, without
get that from
yelling,
him?
he's on Twitter blasting
He has
stuff
a voice.
every day. I mean,
He has a voice, but I feel like he's more of an introvert person than
Does he have a
He's
voice,
in
or
the
does he have a
spotlight.
platform?
he's in the spotlight. He puts himself in the spotlight all the
he
time.
does. He's good at marketing.
He's
He
good
uses
at
it to
everything.
his advantage.
Yeah. He puts himself out. I'd say Bill Gates is a good example because you don't see him putting him. But I mean, in the same, Zuckerberg is another one.
He's another one.
You don't see him. Elon Musk
Yeah.
is literally in the spotlight 24/7 in the limelight on purpose with his exuberant like rollouts for everything that he does and all the crazy stuff that he does. Like he's always trying to put himself out there.
Zuckerberg's quiet.
Zuckerberg is
You
super
don't hear
quiet.
anything. Every once in a while, you'll see a post on Facebook, but he's really super quiet.
Yeah. He also kind of fell into something though too. Elon's a different kind of person. I don't know if we've ever had anybody as smart as Elon. Right? Or innovative as
yeah,
Elon?
But Mark Zuckerberg is, if you look at what he's done with Facebook, he was offered, I think at the time when Facebook was starting out, like $4 billion or something from, a company, and he told him no. He said no, because he believed in what he could do with the company and what it would be worth, and now he's worth over $100 billion. The other thing, and if you watched him too, his insight into the metaverse, where he pivoted and wanted to build that out, which I think in a lot of ways he is right. He may be way ahead of time on it, or it may evolve into something completely different than what we see right now. But his vision on things and his ability to pivot into when he was getting beat up on ad revenue with the Reels with TikTok. I don't know if you've noticed over the past couple months, but like he's grown that revenue stream from Reels like exponentially. And he's actually pushed back, he's like backed off on the metaverse thing because he was bleeding so much money.
Didn't catch on.
I do think Mark is the reason Facebook is where it is.
Yeah.
Like, I do.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah,
There's no way he's not smart and innovative, right, to be able to worry. And I think he was one of the first people to really utilize AI too. I mean, he utilized AI pretty strongly through Facebook and algorithms. And I mean, he's constantly evolving. I mean, he bought Instagram when he saw that opportunity, right, and made sure he seized that moment. So I'm not taking anything from him. I just feel like Elon's like the modern day Einstein. And he's just like it. He's so innovative. He's so smart. He's so ahead of his time and thought process. Not to say everything he says is right or everything that he does is right, but I just recognize his greatness.
Some people would disagree with you on that, but
yeah,
I mean, in all reality, because a lot of people don't think he's that smart. He just knows how to use people or get what he needs, right? So, just saying, caveat. There's always a caveat.
I mean, he's extremely driven. I mean, who starts a car?
Smart.
Yeah, I know.
Him talk.
I'm just saying.
There is no faking that. I've sat there and listened to
Yeah.
his podcasts and him speaking. He is not.
He's very insightful.
Yeah.
And, he can look at something, and it's cool is because like he'll pause for a while and won't answer it because he'll actually think about it and he'll give you very insightful answers. But if you look at when he started his car company and his rocket company, the economy was like in the tank. Like, who starts a rocket company, first
Huge
of all,
balls.
that thinks they're going to be successful? Who starts an electric car company? Like, they're the worst companies to try and start, but he did it because,
right.
like, he has that drive of, like, these are important things to achieve, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to put in all my effort to achieve it because that's what needs to get done, like, which is cool. And to me, that's inspiring from a leader standpoint because, he totally believes in it. He's all in.
Mm-hmm. And what's inspiring to you as a leader could be completely different than what's
true.
inspiring to me
point.
as a leader, right?
The whole time we're talking about this, I'm thinking about the opposite of this, which is, like I talked about earlier, Martin Luther King. I mean, he wasn't driven by financial gain at all. He was a leader because he was trying to change something. So that there's a difference to me in...
Again, somebody with a huge voice.
Right.
Right.
Well, he had a big voice.
Yeah. I mean, with a voice and somebody that you're looking... I mean, name a great leader in history. Like when we think about great leaders that weren't speaking, that didn't have a voice. I mean, I don't mean to I'm not taking it anywhere, but like when you look at great leaders, like I think maybe it's just the way we think, our thought process when it comes to that. But like when you look at the world's, other than maybe like Rosa Parks, she didn't have a huge voice, but we consider her a leader because of a stance that she took, right? That was kind of like a quiet leadership, I guess, right? When you look at her as like a leader,
right,
in a way, right? Because she led a revolution or chose to take a stance on something that I don't know if that would be a leader or not. See, that's what I'm saying. Like without a voice,
I think it is a leader.
It is a leader, right? Because but
or what would you call that though? If it's not a leader, it's setting a precedent. It's setting a precedent of some sort. But
right. But if you're
a catalyst, she'd be like almost like a catalyst for change,
right?
Like so, I don't know. Yeah,
but it's still a leadership because you're stepping up in a position that others may not.
It's interesting when we start talking about this that my mind starts going into, when you think about leadership from a simple standpoint, you think about it. But now that we're discussing it, now it's opening it up a lot more, right?
So going back to voice though, because I think you said thinking in history. Well, in history, we didn't have social media. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have TV for a long, you know what I'm saying? Like all of these things. You had radio. But even before that, you had paper, you had
the newspaper.
You had the newspaper. So sometimes now, is it really a voice you're hearing or is it noise? And is does that create a difference in the leader?
If it's noise, it wouldn't be a leader.
Right? That's the messaging part of it.
Yeah. If it's just noise, then it's not a leader, right? I want to hear from the leader directly. And if it's It's got to be substantial to be them for them to be a leader. There's plenty of people that talk a lot. That doesn't make them a leader.
Right.
Right.
So, I mean, to that point, though, there's probably a lot of people right now that are just noise, that are loud because we hear them all the time. Some people may actually think they're a leader.
I'm sure some people
Again,
do.
you're right.
Yeah, you have
because
to. I mean, you have to back it up. Like, yeah, you have to have a voice. You have to have vision. You have to have enthusiasm. I feel like, you
And
know,
like you said, results.
and results.
You said that. You said you have to have
results.
wins. You have to have,
Because
there
if
has to
you're
be some
if
kind of
you
results.
are all talk, people see that. I
Right.
feel like so like you have
When
to.
you say results, we're talking business again. You can
Yeah.
take that.
It
you
could
can
be
spin that
be
around.
results in anything though. Like
I mean, you look at Martin Luther King. He had results.
Not
He-
early
he-
on.
Not
So,
like
but his-
tangible
but it was still-
results, but like
Right.
but
he made a
had
difference,
people,
right?
He results. He had a lot of following, didn't he? Didn't he have? Wasn't he
he
gaining
changed
a
a
lot of
lot of
followers?
people's minds too, right? And he, I mean,
Yeah.
he did.
So just because things didn't get past whatever, he was building a legitimate following.
He had a lot of
you know?
failures, obviously, because he had a huge wall to burst through.
which all leaders should have a lot of
All of them,
failures.
yeah.
Honestly, if you don't, there's a problem, right? So,
True.
can we go back to, you keep saying alpha, and I want to. Alpha is a strong word, and some people might not like that word. So, is it alpha, or is it just like a strong person? Like, if I think alpha, and I'm being a female saying this, I'm thinking alpha male.
I don't think see,
I
but
know,
you think like
but
that, but I don't think
I know,
like that.
but I'm saying like,
When I think alpha personality, I just think
Yeah.
of like somebody who's, like commands
attention or
respect,
commands,
so to speak,
presence,
right? Or they have a presence,
yeah.
right? It's just alpha in general.
right?
So
What
I
about
don't think alpha male. I don't know. I never thought about that. I think there's plenty of women that I meet that are alphas.
right?
right.
It's personality.
Yeah.
You know, again, if it's too much, like I've seen this, you know, it has a negative effect,
100%.
and people don't want to follow some people to the extreme
Right.
because of that.
I think people confuse though. I think people misconstrue alpha with boisterous. That's not an
True.
alpha, right? I think that's
True.
the problem.
Yeah.
I think in today's society, you look at an alpha and you think some dude that is huge and muscular and loud and crazy, and that's not an alpha, right? And I've met plenty of people who try to portray or project that they're an alpha that aren't an alpha in any way, shape, or form. A lot of times you find out that it's because they have self-confidence issues, right? That's why they're the loudest person in the room. But I think when you think alpha, sometimes I think people, for me, when I think alpha, I think natural born leader. I don't think strong. I don't think loud. I think natural born leader when I think alpha. Someone who steps into that role naturally and it just comes natural to lead, to be in that position.
So if you look at the definition of alpha, it says denoting a person who has a dominant role or position with a particular sphere. So it could be misconstrued this person is just loud.
Yeah.
Not that they're a leader, they're just a power, right?
I think that's what people do think of sometimes,
Right.
unfortunately.
So, but by definitions, that's, it doesn't have to be a leader that's alpha,
Yeah.
right? So
No.
I was just curious what the definition was, because I look at the dictionary every day.
I should.
So thinking of all these traits we talked about, and I'm sure there's many more, is there leaders that come to mind other than like Elon and Bill Gates and Marc Zuckerberg and Martin Luther? Any other ones that you think of that or have been influenced in your life, and maybe people who nobody knows?
Corey, you want to go?
Why me, man?
I don't want
It's
to
messed
steal your
up.
thunder.
My thunder? What do you mean? I don't even have any thunder. What are you talking about?
I don't have anything to say, so I'm passing
so Corey,
it to you,
I'm
sir.
passing it to you. Don't want to steal your thunder. Okay.
Just want to build you up, Corey.
I don't know.
All right, so I'll go. Steve Jobs, to me, every time you watched him speak, like he was always inspiring. Whenever he was out there, like he was exciting. He built excitement in the room, and he just made you want to be a part of what he was doing. Like I don't know, just for me, like the guy was so passionate. I know probably a lot of people that work for him didn't like him. Like I think he came off very strong sometimes, but he had a super amount of passion. He had a lot of vision. He was extremely driven, for what he was doing in his sphere. And, so, I mean, for me, he's one of my top.
I like that. He had that graduation speech a while ago.
It was
It was
good.
one of the best
Yeah.
speeches.
Yeah,
I've
that was a
ever-
great speech, actually.
Ever.
I
heard, for sure.
I think of like, I'm going to take it to sports right now, just because I'm a sports guy and I love sports. I'm going to think of Tom Brady. So like, when you look at Tom Brady, he exudes leadership, right? Like, here's a guy, and I'm gonna take it a different way for him, right? Here's a guy when he was at New England who took pay cut after pay cut after pay cut in order to increase the salary cap, so they can bring on guys that were going to help them win championships. So again, we talk about leadership, right? That to me is a great leader. And when we talk about great quarterbacks, we always have that talk, right? And in his era, there's also Rodgers, right? So everybody brings him up. And my beef with Rodgers is he's always been a me guy. And that's why he doesn't have the championships that he has. So we talked about that a little earlier, the we versus I. And Brady always, you could see him on the sidelines. He always took charge. He always had that kind of presence, but he was a we guy. And he took pay cuts. And I know he's making millions, but there's a lot of guys who don't do that, but he was taking pay cuts to make the team better. So, and he went to a team like Tampa who had nothing going on for them and was able to replicate that and take that team from nothing to a championship in 1 year. That to me is a leader.
I feel like Tom Brady, you can go back even farther from college, and he wasn't a first round draft pick.
Ninth round.
He was ninth round.
Last round.
This is a guy that like nobody thought was going to be successful, and he's like, I'm going to prove you wrong. So I think you can go back that far too in his career.
Yeah. So I just took it to sports because is it sad to say that I don't think we have a ton of leaders in the world right now?
No, it's not sad. It's
I can't think of anyone. Like, I'm really sitting here trying to think like from a social aspect, or like even if you take it like political, but in general, like world leader or a voice in the world that isn't polarizing, who is
not about themselves.
I just really can't think of anyone. It's sad.
It's weird to me.
Yeah, it's a tough generation right now.
It doesn't make sense. And I don't want to go politically, but that's where it goes.
I think it does because everything polarizing is popular.
Yeah.
And that's what gains views and attention on all the devices that we carry around every day.
Yeah.
For sure.
Tough.
What?
So I can't answer. Other
Yeah.
than that, I have no other answers other than Tom Brady's.
What have you learned from good leaders in your lifetime? And these are probably people nobody knows.
I'm not going to steal your thunder, Corey. So do you want to go first?
I can go on this one, but talking about sports, I think of coaches that I had throughout the years. There's many that stand out to me that were awesome leaders. And I think that actually set the stage for me in my playing football. And I'm talking from very young. If I see those guys, well, they passed away now, but if I see them, they're still coach.
Right.
I'm 40 years old and I'm still, hey, coach. I still respect those guys because of how they led kids, at that time. And even into high school, the same thing. You have those coaches that were, I don't even know how to explain it, but they were good at what they did. You know what I mean?
They made an impact.
They made an impact in your life. Yeah. So.
And I think coaches get such a bad rap. And I think parents are awful to coaches.
Awful.
To be
Okay.
100%.
Okay,
I know. But to your point, same thing. My high school volleyball coach was also my college coach at one point because she switched over. And I remember writing her a letter a few years ago, and I'm just like, I just want to thank you. Like, she was probably the most impactful person in my life for a number of reasons. And to this day, she still is. So
the Ragers from in Myerstown. This was Myerstown Panthers. They were in it, and they lived and breathed, foot and helping kids. That's what they did. It was. I'm going to tell my 1985. We were undefeated, unscored upon for the whole season. It was because of them. They were great at what they did. I still love those guys.
Adam, anybody? No.
Adam just looks at himself in the mirror, and that's what does it for him.
I just exude leadership.
I can feel it coming off of him right now.
I'm going to go back to, so it's funny I'm going to say this because him and I had a huge falling out at the end of my time with him, but a gentleman of the name Nick Laus, who's no longer with us, so rest in peace. But Nick Laus was the owner of Cafe Fresco Level 2, Home 231, a bunch of other restaurants and successful ventures. And he had all the leadership qualities, like all of them. He was the first one there every day. He owned it, and he was at the restaurant open for breakfast. So he's there 8 a.m, 7, 8 a.m, and he's there till we close at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, right? And then back in the next day, every day. He just showed up, and he didn't need to. He had plenty of money. The restaurant and bar, everything was successful. He had leadership in place that was great, but he just felt like he had to be there and show that he was a leader, right? And he taught. So he was very good at, when you screw up, sitting you down in the office and explaining why and how you can do it better, and just teaching versus just being like, you can't do that and leaving it at that. He would be like, hey, when you do this, this is the result. And if you would do it this way, this would be the result that you get. So you need to do that better. Right. And he was innovative. He was always taking something ahead of the curve. He was doing something different. He wasn't afraid to make those leaps of faith, so to speak. And he was good at what he did. And he had a huge impact on me because that was when I changed my management style to leadership, was with him, because I was with him for 3.5 years, and he just preached to me leadership without saying leadership. He never said, like, this is how you're a great leader. And in the time, I didn't realize what he was doing. But as I got older, when I look back, I'm like, man, I hated him for some of the things that he did to me that made me so much better of a person today. But I was too stupid and probably egotistical in my late 20s, early 30s to figure that out, right? So now that I'm older and I can look back, I wish I could thank him personally for that. But yeah, he made me a better leader. So that's who I can think of.
I think it's funny you brought that up, because I was thinking about a connection thing. Most of the good leaders I've had the pleasure of working for or being around are the ones who always found a connection. Like, I had one at Vanguard, Rich Farley. He always tried to find that one thing with everybody. And we're in a building of 500 people, and he knew every person's name, and he knew one thing about every person in that building, so he could walk over and be like, he would come to me and be like, so what music are you listening to today? That was his thing. Him and I had this music thing for whatever reason. So I think those are the leaders too, for me, that are like the good leaders, the ones that had some type of connection. I had to do an award ceremony. It was like the anniversaries at my last company that I was at, and the leader who was doing the delivery of these awards, he wasn't the CEO. The CEO couldn't be there that day, or something happened. So the COO was the one who did it. And it was probably for the best, because he literally had a connection with every single person. And I had scripted out stuff for these people to read. He didn't look at the paper once. And we're talking, one guy was celebrating his 50th anniversary with the company. When he started as an engineer, he was making $2.49 an hour.
Oh my God.
And he knew that. He didn't have to ever look at the paper. He literally was so to me, I think there's a good, those leaders that have those connections, man, they make you feel great. And that's what I like. I like the ones who can connect, and I try to emulate that where I can.
Yeah, that's important.
I agree. Certainly, I've seen a lot of bad leaders, and what that can do.
We're going there next.
You're not lying.
Yeah, I think for me, Lisa, like you touched on, you can tell, again, enthusiasm, caring about your vision, the people that are part of your team,
Right.
Those are all qualities of good leaders, and you see that in people. And the poor leaders, are the ones that don't care, or, don't take the time, like Rob said, to sit you down and tell you how you could do things better to become a better you, or a better player on the team. So yeah, I've seen both sides.
What are those bad leadership qualities? What are the things that you're like, I'm glad I learned that from somebody else, and I never want to see myself like that?
The not getting in the trenches. I think that's the biggest one for me, because, and I go to the car business because of what I know. So, having a sales manager that would tell you what he wanted to do, but wouldn't come out and do it, and he would sit in his office all day and then not give you shitty deals when you came to him. That was one guy, and then there was another guy that was super hands on. That would be like, if he's saying, "Hey, move cars on the lot," he was out there moving cars. He was out there just in the mix, and that's the guy that said, activity breeds activity. And you know what? Anytime that we were out there when there was nothing happening and we were out there start moving cars around, business would come in. It was strange. You know, it just gave you something to keep you moving so you're not sitting there idle. But he was always out there with you, you know, in the trenches. So I respect that.
I think you can tell. And like, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be, you know, the person, you know, in the trenches doing necessarily all the work, but it's a person being part of being there and getting extra resources and additional help to solve the issues or accomplish or do those things, being part of it. And, you know, I've seen good leaders, you know, manage, you know, crisis at like different places I worked, you know, till 1, 2 in the morning, like, you know, 8 hours past the shift.
You're saying you're not going to get in the trenches with us? Is that what you're saying, Adam?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm
That's
saying
what it sounds like.
He's not a trenchy kind
not
of guy.
being
Not trenching?
blunt. No. I'm
Not gonna
always
put
in
on
the
a trench
trenches.
coat?
Sometimes it's too much of a problem.
You're not going to put the trench coat
You
on?
can
all
get
this?
blind. You can get consumed and blinded if you're too focused on one thing in the trench. Like being part of it and being a leader in the solution of it. But I've seen bad leaders just stand by and watch guys, you know, struggle and not help or be a part of giving them the resources to fix the problem. And that's a poor leader. And that, you know, obviously.
And then on top of that, probably yell at them for not doing it.
Yeah, that doesn't.
Like,
yeah, that's a bad leadership
Right.
or a leader.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lisa.
I was going to say, I'm going to take it back to like what we were saying earlier. If you have somebody that's all about themselves or feels threatened by the people who are under, you know, who are under them. And I had that happen in my career. I had literally a leader who wanted me fired because she felt threatened by me. And she tried to get her boss to fire me when she was out on leave. He came, had a conversation with me, and he goes, "I'm not firing her. You're insane." Like, so those are the ones that I'm always like, I never want to be that person. I don't ever want to be that person who it's about me or, you know, I'm threatened by others, because to me, I'm not great at everything. I'm never gonna be. I'm very imperfect. I need people who can do the things I can't do, and I need to celebrate them, not treat them like shit.
So I've had the distinct pleasure of working under a lot of bad leaders because I spent all that time in the restaurant industry. And if anybody's been in the restaurant industry, you know damn well there is a ton of really shitty leaders.
Managers that would go in the
Just
office and shut the
terrible.
door while shit's blowing up on the floor. Yeah.
Terrible. So I'll for me personally, the worst experiences that I've had are the leaders, they're not leaders, managers, right, or people in charge that refuse to listen to the people with boots on the ground, right? So especially from an ownership standpoint in the restaurant business, a lot of restaurant owners, they create restaurants that they like. It's the number, if anybody in here ever thinks about opening a restaurant or a bar, do not do what you like.
Right.
Right? It's the number one thing I find, and it's one of the number one reasons restaurants fail. When you open a restaurant, it's not about what you like or what you want. It's what the consumer wants and needs, right? And people open these restaurants and they're like, I know best, right? I know what it needs to be. And there's people with boots on the ground, right? There's servers, there's bussers, there's bartenders. They're listening to the feedback. They're getting the real feedback, not the fake, review online or the screaming and yelling. They're literally saying, "Hey, I liked when you had this menu. Hey, why don't you bring this here? Hey, why don't you do this?" These are real constructive. This is like real constructive criticism. And the worst managers in the business were the ones that refused to listen to those people, tell them what needed to change. And that to me probably is the biggest thing. And that's something I think we do well as leadership is we listen to our franchise owners and we listen to our agents in terms of what and how we can make Iron Valley real estate better. And I think we're really good about exploring those options and doing our best to adapt to them when they make sense.
And to add on to that, it's after you listen, it's about communicating.
Yeah.
Right? Like communicating, yes, we're going to do it, or no, and this is why we're not going to do it, right?
Yeah. The why, not the just
not
a
the,
no.
No, it's the why. Like, and so many times it's the bad leaders will just be like, no, we're not doing it because I said so. It's the same thing, right? So
It's stupid.
it was a
Your
dumb
idea is stupid.
It is unfortunate how many bad leaders there are out there, sadly. But yeah, So if you had to give advice to somebody who is like either pursuing a career in leadership or who you could see being a leader in the future, what advice would you give them?
Know your stuff. Know your numbers. Get the education. Learn as much as you can. Learning is a lifelong thing in your field. Become the expert. Work harder or as hard as you possibly can. I think those are all important things, if you're going to be a successful leader, in addition to everything else we talked about.
I'm going to say, look for the leader you want to be in someone else and emulate them and ask them to take you under their wing, because you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes the best way to learn is through someone who's already successful in that field and what you want to do. So I would say look for a leader that emulates what you would want to emulate as a leader, and have them take you under their wing.
I second that. I mean, honestly, it makes sense. I think taking pieces of the leadership the good leadership that you've had across the years and putting that into your what's the word I'm looking for? Playbook, repertoire, playbook, whatever, is a good way to do it. And then continue to learn. I don't think you ever stop learning.
Learn every day.
I do think also for me, it's really around being emotionally aware and emotionally intelligent, and, kind of going against what Adam said, but at the same time, if you don't know, just admit you don't know, right? And get the help. To what Rob said, have somebody in your back pocket, have a good mentor, somebody that throughout your career you can reach out to and bounce things off of. I think that's really important.
Yeah, there's something really great and respectful about someone that's not afraid to say, hey, I don't know, but let me find out.
Yeah.
I love that. It's
like
the opposite of what people, I think to hear from other people when they don't know. Like, people they're so afraid to say they don't know, but it's actually refreshing.
You should never make something up if you don't know.
Yeah. People don't care either. 99% of the time, people don't care.
No.
Like, if you say, hey, I'm going to find the answer.
Yeah.
I think the reason why people historically weren't like that, because they always felt like they had to have the answer, right? And that's what was taught to you. If you don't know, you're not good enough, right? So it's getting that mindset that not everyone knows everything, because if we did, we wouldn't be working to the bone.
You got to know some stuff.
Right, exactly. You have to know some stuff, but not everything. For those of you who are actually starting out in a leadership role, there's a great book called The First 90 Days. I would suggest reading that too, because if you're moving from a role where you're not people leading and you're going into like people leadership, it helps you make a plan to get away from going back to what you're comfortable with and how to become uncomfortable. Because
what was that called?
The First 90 Days.
The First 90 Days. If you're out there and listening to our podcast, we demand that we get paid for that little. I'm just kidding. We'll take 50 cents for every book you sell in the next 30 days.
Elon Musk too. Yeah. Elon Musk.
I think one of the things we didn't really,
a couple bucks, man.
The one thing we didn't really touch on throughout the podcast, but that book is good for, is being a leader means that you are the one having difficult conversations, and you are the one who has to say, this is what I see. And that book really helps you a little bit get comfortable with, what's my plan? How am I going to manage these things I didn't have to do before, like having those difficult conversations. So
I think the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is another good book too.
Yeah, I like that one.
That's so basic. That's like basic sales 101.
Sometimes it is just the basics.
That's very true.
Back to the basics, Corey. Back to the basics.
Signs in yards, man.
Signs in the yards.
Back to the
But
basics.
it is. It's implementing those, things that are probably very obvious, but doing them and being consistent. I know, you always give me a hard time.
I mean, in all reality, and I don't know, Katie's been in college the soonest right now, but some of the books that they still suggest you read are ones that are not brand new. I mean, Dale Carnegie's
that's a good one.
The How to Win Friends and Influence People. I had to do it as part of my my master's program. And that book is from.
I've read that like 3 times.
It's a great book. It's one of the best books in the world.
It's in my office right now. If you want to borrow it.
Measure What Matters. That's another one.
No
idea.
Oh gosh.
All right.
Yeah, we've been at it too long. Sorry, Rob and I are ADD out right now.
We're gonna do one question and we're ending this podcast.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
If you had to choose the color that best describes you most accurately, which color would it be?
Red.
Black. all black everything.
Green.
Gray, because I like to live in the gray.
When the fuck do you live
You
in the
don't
gray?
live in the gray. I should have said that. I should have said
Well, I
gray.
stole your thunder. So.
Yeah, now
been stealing
you actually did steal us
actually
under
did.
on that one.
I
Nice.
just like red.
Red.
Red was always my favorite color, but it's
Anger.
red and black are my favorite.
Because you're angry.
Wow.
Yes.
Red and black, angry black man. That's what that stands for.
Well, there's some truth there.
Black like my heart. No, I'm all black everything. I'm literally in an all black t-shirt right now. I like
How many
black.
colors do you normally wear in your t-shirt? Is there more than one color?
It depends.
Okay.
I mean, we wear a lot of black in general.
We all
because
wear-
of
we all
Grand
wear black.
Valley.
We wear
I feel like
black.
I wear the same stuff every day now.
Yeah.
You only have one outfit.
I know. Well, actually, no. I have a lot, but they're all the same.
all the cargo
We
shorts.
understand that.
Yeah.
We see them hanging in your closet very neat.
Should have left those in
Yeah.
2016.
Like two or three colors max.
It's all good.
I go with green. Green's mine.
Yo, I was gonna say green. I don't know why.
Damn it!
You know what?
So mad.
Green.
No. I was
She
gonna
stole your
say
thunder.
No. I was gonna say
green
you were gonna
and-
go with green.
I,
It was just like emulating above your
a
head.
green. Because to me, green is fresh
You
and
look
new.
green.
It's a sign of freshness and newness.
That was an improper use of that word.
Yes, it was.
But that's okay.
It's okay.
It's gonna let it slide.
So yeah, fresh and new. That's what green is.
Fresh and so clean.
So fresh and so clean.
All right, we're
All right.
done.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Peace
Later.
out.